Have you ever fallen in love with someone you should never have noticed that way? Someone who, by all the unwritten rules of life, should have remained completely off your emotional radar? I fell in love with my mother's husband. He was a mafia boss, and our secret almost destroyed me. I know how this sounds. Believe me, I thought I was losing my mind when I first realized what was happening to me. But let me tell you from the beginning, because this story isn't about making wrong choices. It's about feelings that emerge without warning, about the razor-thin line between what's right and what's utterly impossible. My life was normal, intensely, boringly normal, until my mother met Lorenzo. It was 2 years ago. She had just gotten out of a difficult relationship with my biological father, a man who was never really present. When Lorenzo appeared in her life, everything changed. She smiled again. Her eyes sparkled when she talked about him. And honestly, I was happy for her. My mother deserved to be loved by someone who truly saw her. They got married quickly. 6 months after meeting, Lorenzo was already living with us. And that's when my life turned upside down. Lorenzo wasn't an ordinary man. He possessed a gravitational presence that made everyone halt the moment he entered a room. Tall, with broad shoulders that spoke of hidden strength, and those penetrating dark eyes that seemed to strip away every pretense. His voice was a low, controlled instrument that demanded respect without ever raising its pitch. When Lorenzo spoke, the world instinctively listened. That was simply how it was. In the first few months, I avoided being alone with him. Not out of fear exactly. It was more a feeling of discomfort, as if his presence took up all the available space, leaving no room for anything else. He was too intense, too attentive, and I didn't know how to deal with that. But over time, it was impossible not to notice the details. The way he protected my mother without being possessive. How he listened when she spoke, really listened, as if every word mattered. The way his eyes softened when he looked at her, and that silent strength that emanated from him. An absolute confidence in himself that I had never seen in anyone. This can't be happening. He's my stepfather. That was the phrase I repeated to myself every night before falling asleep. There was one night that changed everything. My mother had traveled to visit a sick friend in another city. It would just be a weekend, she said. Lorenzo stayed home. And for the first time, it would be just the two of us. Nerves coiled tight in my stomach. I was uncertain whether I could maintain even a semblance of normalcy. But when I came downstairs for dinner that first night, he was in the kitchen, cooking like a pro. Carbonara pasta, a dish he prepared with the same meticulous precision he applied to every aspect of his life. "Your mother said you like this dish," he said without looking at me, focused on the pan. "Yes, thank you." The conversation was simple, nothing special, but there was something in the air. A tension I couldn't define. We ate in silence, just the sound of cutlery and the low music playing on the radio. After dinner, he went to the office. I stayed in the living room, trying to watch something on TV, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about him, imagining what it would be like if... No. I can't think about that, but I did think about it. And the more I tried to stop, the more the thoughts invaded. Has he noticed yet? Does he feel that something has changed between us? Or am I completely invisible to him? Just his wife's daughter, nothing more. These questions consumed me. I spent the entire night restless, writhing beneath tangled sheets, consumed by an aching hollowness in my chest. This emptiness was no mere absence, it had substance. A name, a face, a haunting low voice that caressed my name in a way no other could, sending shivers through my entire being. The next day, I was in the kitchen making coffee when he appeared. Still in pajamas, messy hair, eyes still sleepy. And even so, he was the most attractive sight I had ever seen in my life. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning." He came closer to get a cup, passed by me, so close I could smell him. A mixture of soap and something that was just him. And in that second, something inside me broke. I wanted him to touch me. I wanted him to see me not as his wife's daughter, but as a person, as someone who existed beyond that safe and distant label. But he just grabbed the cup, poured the coffee, and left the kitchen. And I stood there trembling, realizing that what I felt was no longer a passing attraction. It was deeper, more dangerous. I was falling in love with him. The following days were a nightmare. I couldn't think about anything but him. Every conversation, every look, every presence of his in the same room consumed me from within, and the guilt was crushing. How could I feel this? My mother loved this man. She was happy with him. And there I was, desiring something I could never have, that I should never want. But desire doesn't ask permission. It simply appears. And the more you try to push it down, the stronger it comes back. I started paying attention to small details that had previously gone unnoticed. The way he said my name. How his eyes lingered a second longer when he saw me. How he asked about my day, genuinely interested. Am I making these things up? Am I projecting my feelings onto him and seeing things that don't exist? This doubt tormented me. Until that night. My mother had returned from her trip, and everything should have gone back to normal. But it didn't, because now I knew what I felt, and there was no way to undo that knowledge. We were all in the living room. My mother watching TV, Lorenzo reading some work document, me pretending to be on my phone but actually observing everything. And that's when it happened. Lorenzo lifted his eyes from the paper and looked at me. It wasn't a casual glance. It was a look that lingered, that bore weight, that whispered volumes beyond words. And in that moment I knew. He knew my secret. He noticed how I looked at him, how I got tense when he was near, how my breathing changed when he said my name. And the way he looked at me that night, it was no longer the cautious gaze of a stepfather. It was the raw, forbidden gaze of a man consumed by a desire he knew he shouldn't entertain. That changed everything, because now it wasn't just me. It was both of us, two people trapped in a web of impossible, dangerous attraction that threatened to destroy everything around us. In the following days, we began a silent game, a game of furtive glances, of presences that lasted a second too long, of conversations that said less than what we felt. He started seeking me out in subtle ways. He'd ask my opinion about things he would never have asked before. He'd stay in the kitchen when I was making coffee. He'd appear in the living room when I was alone. And each time that happened, the tension between us grew, like a rope being stretched, about to snap. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was betraying my mother just by feeling what I felt. But at the same time, those feelings were real, true, and impossible to ignore. There was one afternoon when he came home early. My mother was still at work. I was on the deck reading. He showed up with 2 cups of coffee. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the chair next to mine. "Of course." He sat down. We stayed in silence for a few minutes. Just the sound of birds and the wind in the trees. "You've seemed different," he said suddenly. My heart raced. Different how? More distant. More tense. I didn't know what to say. I lied. "It's just stress from college." He looked at me, that look that seemed to pierce through all my defenses. "You don't need to lie to me." At that moment, I teetered on the razor's edge of fate. One breath, one heartbeat could shatter everything. I didn't know it then, but I was about to discover that crossing that line would set off a chain reaction I wouldn't be able to control. "Lorenzo, But before I could continue, my mother arrived. We heard the car in the garage, and that moment shattered. He got up, grabbed the cups, and left the deck without looking back. And I stayed there, trembling, knowing that unfinished conversation was a promise. A promise that at some point, we would both have to confront what was happening between us. Because denying our connection had become impossible. The attraction burned too intensely. Our bond ran too deep. And the perilous undercurrents of Lorenzo's Mafia world only heightened the danger. That night marked the beginning of our point of no return. He looked at me differently. During dinner, when my mother served the food and talked about her day, Lorenzo wasn't paying attention. He was looking at me, with an intensity that made my whole body tremble. And I knew he knew my secret, that he felt the same thing, and that at some point, we would both have to decide what to do about it. But what I didn't know is that crossing that line would bring consequences that would change everything. Forever. The moment he acknowledged my feelings, there was no going back. But each stolen moment came with a price. 3 days after that night, he asked me to meet him in the utility room at the back of the house. It was late. My mother had gone out with friends. The house was silent, except for the sound of my heart beating so loud I was sure he could hear it. When I walked in, he was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. The dim light from the street lamp came through the small window, casting shadows on his face. He looked at me in a different way. It was no longer that look of disapproval or discomfort. It was something else. "I need to tell you something." His voice came out low, almost a whisper. Something I've never told anyone. My stomach churned. Was he going to kick me out of the house? Was he going to tell my mother? But then he continued. "I've always known who I was, since I was a child, but I never had the courage to accept it. I built an entire life pretending to be someone else. I got married. I took on a role. I pretended for so long that I almost forgot I was pretending." He paused, took a deep breath. "Until you arrived? Have you ever felt so vulnerable that any word could break you or save you? That's exactly how I felt in that moment. You made me remember who I really am," he said. And for the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes. And that terrifies me, because I know what it means. I know the price. I couldn't speak. I could only take one step forward, and then another, until I was close enough to smell him. That same scent that drove me crazy every night. "I don't want to hurt you," he whispered. "I don't want to hurt your mother. But I also can't pretend anymore that I don't feel this." "Then don't pretend," I said, my voice coming out firmer than I expected. He looked at me for a long moment, and then closed the distance between us. The first kiss was different from anything I had ever imagined. It wasn't that desperate, urgent, lustful thing I'd seen in movies. It was slow, careful, full of fear and truth at the same time. As if we both knew we were crossing a line from which there was no return. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "This can't happen again," he said, but his hand still held my waist. "I know," I lied, "because we both knew it would happen again. And again, and again, and it did." Over the next few weeks, our life became a dangerous game of stolen glances and secret meetings. When my mom left for work, we stayed. When she slept, he came to my room. Every touch felt like a transgression. Every whispered word, a betrayal. But the worst part wasn't the guilt. The worst part was that I was happy. Happier than I had ever been in my life. He treated me like no one had ever treated me. He listened to me. He saw me. It wasn't just physical attraction. It was connection. It was as if after years of feeling invisible, someone had finally turned on the light and said, "I see you. You matter. Have you thought about telling her?" I asked one night, lying on his chest in my room. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. "Every day," he finally said. "But it's not just about her. It's about my world. The people I work with, they wouldn't accept this. Ever. So what? We could just leave." He gave a bitter laugh. "You don't understand how it works. I can't just leave. The world I'm in, the people I know. It's not that simple. So we stay like this forever? Hidden?" He tightened his arm around me. "I don't know. I just know I can't lose you now that I've found you." It was romantic. It was intense, but it was also a ticking time bomb. And my mom was starting to notice. At first, it was small things. A strange look during dinner. A question about why my stepfather and I were suddenly talking so much. Why he defended me when before he barely spoke to me. "Are you two okay?" she asked one day, out of nowhere. "Yes, Mom. Why?" She studied me with that look only mothers have. The one that sees through any lie. "I don't know. It seems different. You seem different." "It's because I finally feel good here," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. "I feel like part of the family now." She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Things started getting more tense on his side, too. One day, one of his associates showed up at the house without warning. My stepfather was with me in the kitchen, our proximity perhaps a bit too suspicious for a normal stepfather and stepson. The man looked between the two of us with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Did I interrupt something?" he asked, his voice loaded with something that made me freeze. "We were just talking," my stepfather replied, his voice returning to that hard, authoritative tone he used with everyone but me. The man gave a crooked smile. "Of course, talking." After he left, my stepfather was visibly shaken. "He suspected," I said. "It doesn't matter." "What do you mean it doesn't matter? You said yourself that if these people found out—" "I know what I said!" he snapped. And for the first time since we started, I saw real anger in his eyes. But it wasn't anger at me. It was fear. "I'm sorry. I just need to be more careful." "We need to be more careful," I corrected. He looked at me with a mixture of love and despair. "No, you don't understand. If this blows up, I'll go down alone. I'll make it seem like it was just me. That I forced you. That—" "No!" I grabbed his arm. "Don't talk like that. I chose this as much as you did. I'm not going to let you sacrifice yourself for me. You're only 17. You don't understand the consequences. Then explain it to me. Stop treating me like a child." He took a deep breath, trying to control himself. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer, but heavy with weight. "The people I work with, they come from a very old world. Traditional, violent. Homosexuality is seen as weakness, as betrayal. If they find out about me, at best I lose everything. At worst—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "Then we stop," I said, even knowing we wouldn't stop. "Now, before it's too late." He looked at me for a long moment, then pulled me into a kiss. Desperate, as if it were the last. "It's already too late," he whispered against my lips. And I knew he was right. In the following days, things got increasingly tense. My mom started asking more direct questions. Why did we spend so much time locked in the office? Why did we go out together without her? Why had he given me that expensive watch for my birthday? "He's just being nice, Mom." "Too nice," she muttered, and I pretended not to hear. But the last straw came on a Thursday night. My stepfather and I had been careless. We were in his room, thinking my mom was asleep. But she wasn't. The door opened. The world stopped. We weren't doing anything obviously suspicious at that exact moment, but the proximity, the way we were sitting on his bed, the intimacy that emanated from us. It was undeniable. My mom stood frozen in the doorway, her face going through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, and then, slowly, comprehension. "What's going on here?" Her voice came out low, dangerously calm. "Nothing, honey. We were just talking," my stepfather said, getting up quickly. "Talking," she repeated, her voice trembling. "In your bed, at this hour of the night, talking." "Mom, it's not what you're thinking. It's not? She stared at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something I had never seen in her eyes. Disgust. Then tell me, what exactly am I thinking? What's going on here? Her voice came out low, dangerously calm. Nothing, honey. We were just talking, my stepfather said, standing up quickly. No one answered. The silence grew thick with unspoken tension. Get out of my room. Now, she said to me, her voice breaking. I looked at my stepfather. He didn't look at me. He just stood there, head down, like a man on death row waiting for his sentence. I left, but I didn't go to my room. I stayed outside the door, listening. How long? My mother asked. Silence. How long? A few weeks, he finally admitted. The sound she made was worse than a scream. It was a moan of pure pain. With my son. My son, you... With my son. I'm sorry. You're sorry? She gave a hysterical laugh. You destroy my family and you're sorry? It wasn't like that. I tried to resist. I tried. He's only 17. I know. You think I don't know? You think I don't hate myself for this? Hearing that was like taking a punch to the stomach. He hated himself. Because of me. Because of us. I want you out of this house, my mother said, her voice now dead. No emotion, which somehow was even more frightening. Tomorrow morning, you leave and never come back. And where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem. You made your choice. I heard footsteps. I moved away from the door quickly and ran to my room. Locked the door. Sat on the floor, leaning against it, trying to process what had just happened. The day I feared most had finally come. She knew. And what happened next nearly destroyed us all. I had to decide. Protect the secret or save what was left of my family. But how do you choose between the person you love and the person who gave you life? How do you decide which heart to break? And the worst part? I still didn't know that the real danger was only just beginning to unfold. Everything I feared collapsed all at once. Amid the ruins of my shattered reality, I discovered something I never expected. A truth more complex than I could have imagined. It was on a Sunday morning. I woke up to the sound of raised voices coming from the living room. My heart froze. I recognized my mother's voice, and she was crying. I went down the stairs slowly, as if each step brought me closer to the end of everything. When I reached the living room, the scene tore me in half. My mother was standing, trembling, with her phone in her hand. My stepfather was sitting on the couch, his head down, his shoulders hunched. The silence between them was heavy as lead. She looked at me. Her eyes were red, destroyed. And then she said, her voice breaking, "Tell me this isn't true. Tell me I got it wrong." I couldn't answer. My throat closed up. She continued, "I saw the messages. I know what's going on between you two." The world stopped. My stepfather raised his head and looked at me. Not with anger, but with something worse. Defeat. As if everything he had tried to protect had been destroyed in that instant. My mother took a step toward me. "How could you do this to me? How could both of you?" The pain in her voice was physical. Each word, a knife. "I trusted you. I trusted him. And you betrayed me in the worst possible way." I wanted to scream that it wasn't betrayal, that it was more complicated than it seemed, but there were no words for it. Because she was right. In a way, it was betrayal, and that truth suffocated me. My stepfather finally spoke, his voice low, without anger, just exhaustion. "She's not to blame. It's my fault. I should have been stronger." Stronger? My mother turned to him, disbelief mixed with pain. "You're the adult here. You should have put an end to this before it even started." He didn't respond, just lowered his head again. And in that moment, I realized how much this was destroying him too. It wasn't just my mother suffering. It wasn't just me. It was him, trapped between what he felt and what he knew he should do. My mother turned to me again. "You're only 19. You have your whole life ahead of you. And you choose to get involved with your own mother's husband?" She shook her head, tears falling freely now. "I can't understand it. I can't accept this." And then she did something that shattered me. She left the room. Didn't yell, didn't slam the door, just left. As if she couldn't bear to be there anymore, near us. As if our presence was poison. I was left alone with him. For long seconds, neither of us said anything. Then he spoke, without looking at me. "I need to leave. I need to get out of this house." "No." My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Don't do this. There's no other option." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a sadness I had never seen. "This can't continue. It's destroying her. It's destroying everything. And you think leaving will solve it? My voice rose, desperate. You think pretending nothing happened will make everything go back to normal? I don't know what will solve it. He ran his hand over his face, exhausted. But I know that continuing like this is impossible. That night, he slept in the guest room. In the following days, he barely spoke to me, barely even looked at me. My mother was the same. The house transformed into a silent tomb, where 3 people drifted like ghosts, carefully avoiding each other. I thought about leaving. I thought about disappearing, vanishing. Maybe then they could fix themselves. But something inside me resisted, because I knew that running away wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't erase what happened. It wouldn't erase what I felt. It was on one of those suffocating nights that my mother came to my room. She knocked on the door, waited for me to say, "Come in," before opening. She sat on the edge of my bed, hands in her lap, and stayed silent for a while. Then, with a voice calmer than I expected, she said, "I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand how this started, or why. But I see that you two are suffering, and that breaks me even more." I looked at her, not knowing what to say. She continued, "I don't know if I'll ever be able to accept this, but I need you to tell me the truth. Do you really feel something for him? Or was this just confusion, rebellion?" I took a deep breath, and for the first time, I decided to be completely honest. I do feel it. I didn't want to feel it, but I do. And I know this is horrible for you. I know it seems wrong in every possible way, but I can't pretend it doesn't exist. She closed her eyes, as if the words physically wounded her. But she didn't shout or curse. She simply nodded slowly and said, "I need time. I'm not sure I can ever fully accept this. But thank you for your honesty." She left the room. And although nothing was resolved, something changed. For the first time, I felt there was space to breathe. Space for truth. A few days later, it was his turn. He called me to talk in the garden, away from the house, away from my mother's ears, and he said, looking at the horizon, "I've spent my whole life hiding who I am, hiding what I feel, out of fear, out of shame, thinking that if no one knew, I could keep pretending to be normal." He turned his face toward me. "But I'm tired of living in fear, tired of lying to myself. And when I look at you, I see someone who's also tired of hiding." "And what do we do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I don't know." He gave a sad smile. "But I think we need to stop destroying ourselves for feeling what we feel. Maybe we won't stay together. Maybe this never has a future. But at least for the first time, we're being honest." And in that moment, I realized something fundamental. It wasn't about having a happy ending. It wasn't about staying together or apart. It was about stopping living in the lie. It was about accepting that some feelings don't fit in boxes, and trying to force them in there only hurts us more. In the following weeks, things didn't magically get better. My mother still cried. She still avoided looking at the two of us together in the same room. But gradually, dialogue began to exist. Space began to exist for pain, but also for truth. My stepfather decided to stay in the house, but sleeping in another room. He said he wasn't going to run away this time, that he was going to face it. And although the relationship between him and my mother was irreparably shaken, he said he deserved to try to fix it, not by going back to what it was, but by building something new, more honest. As for him and me, we decided to create distance, not because the feeling disappeared, it's still there, latent, painful, but because we understand that some stories aren't meant to be lived, only felt, and that's okay. Today, months later, I look back and see that the secret almost destroyed me, almost destroyed my entire family. But facing the truth, as painful as it was, freed me from a prison I built myself. I don't regret what I felt. I'm not going to pretend it was wrong just because it's socially unacceptable. Feelings don't ask for permission. They simply happen, and learning to deal with them without destroying yourself or others is perhaps the hardest thing there is. It wasn't the ending I imagined. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time in my life, I'm not hiding who I am. I'm not pretending that certain feelings don't exist. I'm accepting that I'm human, complex, full of contradictions. And that's okay, because in the end, the truth hurts, but lies destroy. If this story resonated with you in some way, know that you're not alone. There are thousands of people going through similar internal conflicts, feeling things they don't know how to name, trapped in secrets that seem impossible to reveal. And if you want to keep seeing stories that challenge what love should be, that explore the gray areas of human emotion, subscribe to the channel. Because these conversations are important, and you deserve a space where you can be seen, heard, and accepted exactly as you are.